Hey, everybody. Today's guest is Eric Floberg. He is a dad, husband, photographer, video producer, and he also has this running hobby that has turned into a second career. If you haven't heard of Eric, there is plenty to learn from his story. 9 years ago, he ran his first marathon, didn't really train for it, and struggled to finish in just under 4 hours. But he got the marathon bug, started working on his craft, and he started to share his story on YouTube. That running hobby has turned into something special, highlighted by Eric's sub 2:30 marathon in Boston back in April. That's the top 1% of all runners in that elite race. And it's not just the time that's impressive, but how he got there. This is a conversation about goals, disappointment, community, and the superpower that is gratitude. Whether you are a runner or not, I know you will enjoy and appreciate this conversation with Eric Floberg. Well, look, man, thanks for being on. We'll talk about Boston and we'll talk about you to give some context of who you are. But the glow of Boston, 6 weeks, I don't know how long ago is that. Are you still feeling the afterglow of hitting your mark and everything that goes with that?
Yeah, it's weird to be this kind of far removed from an event like that, simultaneously feeling like yesterday and a lifetime ago. I feel like when you get into your best peak lifetime marathon shape, it's such a small window of time. I kind of see it similar to the bodybuilding world where they have this peak physique for just this small window of life, and it's like something they're chasing for so long. And I've even heard like bodybuilding friends or friends who have been in bodybuilding competitions just being like, oh, it's so hard to compare myself to that version of myself, but then very quickly being like, yeah, but you can't sustain that version of yourself, indefinitely or at any given time, really. Right. It's just, you have to recognize that it is that version of yourself in that small window, and you designed it to be that way. So I think it's really easy to kind of beat yourself up when you kind of fall out of that shape or maybe put on a few more pounds. But even reflected on it recently, seeing that I've really never had any kind of serious injury over the past 6 years, that me kind of being lazy after a peak effort for a while has been really good for my recovery, to put on a bit of weight, to kind of fall out of it, get off the horse a bit, and that almost fuels getting back into it. So, yeah.
Okay, well, I think you're being a little humble because since the Boston Marathon, you also ran another marathon to help your buddy PR, and it wasn't like a walk in the park. I mean, you ran a 2:49, right? Or was it a 2:39 or 2:49?
A 2:48.
2:48 to help your
hopefully
buddy.
a BQ. Yeah.
Which is, 18, 20 minutes, above where you were in Boston. But that's, when I saw that, I was like, and I ran Boston, and I'm older than you, so I need much more recovery. But I was like, oh my goodness, you just banged out another one. But that was pretty cool. So, you're still running. I mean, let's admit that.
For sure. Yeah. And I think what's interesting is, as you get more experiences like that, or become more attuned to turning around and doing efforts like that, like I have the past, 3 years now, I've kind of doubled back and done a pace race for somebody else, or jumping into a long run workout not that long after. I think the ability to do that was paired with not running much outside of that large effort. And I definitely felt it after that one. But I had the confidence to do so because the first time I really tried that, I got humbled like crazy the first real time I tried it. I ran 2:57 and sub 3 for the first time in the fall of 23. And then 3 weeks later, tried to run sub 3 again at New York and just got obliterated.
Yeah.
But that was 2022. And that was the crazy hot New York year. So there was that element. But then I tried it again in the fall of 24, I believe, where I ran 233 high at Chicago, and then 234 mid at Indy. 3 weeks later, I believe.
Okay.
I feel like
Yeah.
that one gave me the confidence to be like, all right, the lifetime mileage is working.
Yeah.
The fitness to turn around and do something like this is working. Um, Now, I've never done a back to back, like all out effort like that, but it's given me the confidence to double back maybe 2 to 6 weeks after a peak race to go pace something that's more in the range of that 250.
Yeah, that
So,
foundation is so strong. I mean, and you've run a
yeah.
lot. I think you ran like 5 or 6 marathons last year. I mean, a couple of
Yeah.
those were pacers, but man,
Hmm.
you've been cranking them up. I want to talk about your running history because I think whether people are runners or not, you know, I mean, you're putting down some amazing times now, but it hasn't happened overnight. And I think that's what I really want people to understand is like you've paid your dues, you've put in the work to get there,
Hmm.
right? But before we jump off of Boston, and we'll probably jump back into it, I guess what I was talking about with the afterglow of it is, you're very public because you have a YouTube channel about your goals. And 230, sub 230 was a very public goal for a long time. And then you
Hmm.
didn't hit it a few times, but
Hmm.
then you did hit it. So and to hit it at Boston of all places and not an easy course, that's the glow I'm talking about. And so
Yeah.
as you reflect on that, what's it like to shoot for the stars and hit it basically?
It was pretty surreal, I can't lie. And I also can't lie in feeling like my previous two peak marathons felt like a disappointment.
Uh-huh.
Shortly after the race, I typically will do a progression post where I talk about all of my peak marathons year after year and how I've progressed nearly every year in times. And specifically the past 4 years has just been every spring and fall PRing in the marathon and my
Mhm.
peak race. Whether it be by 8 minutes or 7 seconds, it's
Mhm.
been a ricochet, but every year has been a step forward in time. But the last few between McCurdy in the spring of 2025 and then Chicago in
Mhm.
the fall, where I took off just over a minute at McCurdy, going from 233 down to 232.40 something, and then 7 more seconds in Chicago with
Mhm.
I didn't think I was going to PR, but ended up, pulling it out at the last minute. I think a lot of for a whole year of feeling kind of negative, like will I actually ever break 230? I had a lot of encouragement from friends, and namely who I paced a lot of the race with, my friend Trevor,
Mhm.
who was really encouraged me in the last phase of this past build, which is like, you are fully capable of hitting this goal. You have to change your mindset to believe you can. I
Mhm.
think ultimately that shift is what ended up being a huge deciding factor in it happening. So yeah, I mean, I didn't plan any kind of how I would react if I did it. It was just raw emotion, and we didn't really have any footage of it. It was just my friend Justin who got a photo, and I
Yeah.
just I just let out a
Yeah.
massive scream and
Yeah.
just was like
Yeah.
I just all of that emotion just pouring out of me in that moment, and elation and surprise. And yeah, it's weird balance of being so shocked and not shocked at the same time, of
Mhm.
holding both things, of just being like, I can't believe I just did that. And yeah, I have been working for this for so long, and then it happened. It was really wild to experience it on that course specifically,
Mhm.
because I knew it well, I've studied it well, and I literally have never, any race I've ever run has ever been executed that precisely. It
Mhm.
was it was mind blowing to like experience that. So it
Yeah.
was just really cool. Yeah.
Yeah. It's been fun to watch you. And the thing is you've put out this goal of 230 for, a couple of years now. And
Mhm.
I think about that when I put my goal, if do I want to even post like what my goal is, right? And I don't have anything like you have for followers, and you spend months on videos and workouts and great detail of your progression in your workouts and trying to hit this goal. And that's what draws people in. But you didn't hit it a couple of times. And you said that's a massive disappointment. So, how did you get over that? Because you not only do you go through a big training block physically, mentally, then you don't hit the goal and you got to get back on that horse, right? And start
Mhm.
doing it again. and you were able to do that, but I don't wanna lose sight of what I think is how difficult it is to get back on that horse after not hitting that goal.
Yeah, I don't know if it's a difference of just kind of how I'm built mentally or a part of my personality. No matter what, I've come to realize no matter what outcome happens on any given race, if I peaked for that race and trained really hard for it, I've just come to realize that my personality is like I'm just gonna want to jump back into it and challenge myself no matter
Mhm,
what.
mhm.
And I think it's really cool for it to have shaken out the way it has the past handful of years because there's always been a bit of incentive, um, or yeah, just fuel going into the next one because I've been able to PR in some extent.
Yes.
That I've been dissatisfied with the times because the goal, like for two, maybe 3 years, I set a time goal and I kept missing that time goal, but still progressing.
Mhm.
And so, yeah, it is kind of the concept of shoot for the moon, land among the stars. Um, but really, I think me zooming out, the biggest driver of my goal to hit times has just been the overarching goal of seeing what is possible for me
Yes.
specifically,
Yes.
independently. All the variables of my, my genetic makeup, my my disposition towards training, my lack of getting injured, the amount of things I sprinkle in here or there. It's just a science project every
Mhm.
spring and fall, and it's very interesting to me to see what changes make adaptations and like every single time in whatever kind of failure I feel within a race, I'm always coming away with learning something massive for myself, making a small adaptation within that next block, and then seeing how that change manifests in a new race. And what was really cool about Boston is it wasn't really anything physical outside of doing more long run workouts. I think that was pretty paramount for me.
Mhm.
I
Mhm.
actually pulled back and did less volume than the fall block, but so much of it for me was mental in that one.
Yeah.
And realizing that the mental landscape of racing and training can be just as important as the physical aspect of the training and constantly pushing and pulling between those two things. I'm in a really, really good place, I think, mentally, better than I was in those other ones. Cause I think some of that public facing stuff and hearing criticism and dealing with haters and all that was starting to get at me.
Mhm.
And so this winter into the spring was a huge release of just I'm going to ignore all that stuff. I know who I am. My family, my friends know who I am.
Mhm.
I don't need to listen to people who don't know who I am. I'm just going to keep training really hard and lean into gratitude, lean into the ability to do this. And then the result came. It was pretty cool.
Yeah. Yeah, it's really cool. And I realize we're talking about, disappointment and not hitting goals, and we're talking about 2:30 marathons. So that's, I
Yeah.
mean, some people are listening going, yeah, oh, what a disappointment. But
Right.
look, we all have goals, and you do a good job, I think, on your videos, having watched a lot of it. Um, with perspective that it's not always about the time, it's about the journey. And I think that's really important because running is such a metaphor for life, like we
Yes.
have challenges, we have disappointments, we set goals, we accomplish things, we try hard things. So that's what I love about your whole story. So let's start. I mean, it didn't start at 2:30. I think it started closer to a 4-hour marathon like nine
Yeah,
nine years ago. And you have followers on YouTube and Instagram, but not everybody knows who you are. So can you just give us like the beginning part of the running journey for you, and that the progression you made? Just sum that up for us.
for sure. Yeah, I ran my first marathon in 2017 and I really did it without any understanding of the distance or how to train for it. I had some natural ability in running. As a kid, I was always the fastest in my class or my grade in the mile, in gym class.
Mm-hmm.
So I took that to cross country and track in middle school. I won my conference. I ran a 5:24 mile in 8th grade. So like I had that speed young and we had a huge cross country program at my high school. They tried to get me out for it, and I wanted nothing to do with it.
Mm,
So, by the age of 14, I wasn't running really in any capacity anymore. Wasn't training to run, and then went on a few runs in college, and it was kind of an outlet here and there that I would do. I knew that I had that kind of natural ability to run. And so, in my 20s, there was always kind of that back of the mind bucket list. I want to do a marathon at some point. And so, when the opportunity presented itself after we had our second kid, I was in the worst shape really I'd ever been in. Early that year, I was like, I'm going to try to get into Chicago Marathon and just knock this bucket list item
mhm,
off. And then me being me, I wanted to be really competitive with myself. I learned about Boston qualification. I was like, all right, well, I'll try to do that then,
mm,
off the back of virtually no training, not understanding fueling. And so then ran a 350 in that race, having gone through half in 135. So
mm.
just completely bonked
Yeah,
super hard.
yeah,
Um, so yeah, I mean, at that time I was building my wedding photography and filmmaking career, and that was taking off, and I was growing my network in Chicago and really growing that business. And so the next year had not realized, like I had gotten back into Chicago through the lottery, and then didn't realize that I had booked a wedding the day before the Chicago
mm,
Marathon.
mm,
So I was on my feet for 10 hours the day before the race. Wedding photography is brutal on your
yeah,
body. You
yeah,
wake up sore the next day. Like, it doesn't sound like it would be, but it absolutely is. And yeah, so I knew that going into that block, so I didn't really train at all, and then ran the worst marathon I've ever run in like just under 4 hours and 3:59. Um, yeah, wanted to go in conservative with that one. Like, went through half in 1:45 and still blew up,
yeah,
maybe just as bad, if not worse. And so from there, that really lit a fire in me. I was like, I'm capable of so much more than this. So while like the big progression posts show that kind of around 4 hours, that wasn't really like, if I was trained up,
yeah,
I think that number would be a lot different. But I like including it because it really does tell the story of what so many people might go through. Maybe less now with how many resources we have on
yeah,
the internet and training for marathon. But it is true. I ran those times, and I was trying to run as fast as I could.
yeah,
That's what I was capable of. So a lot of people ask about my jump from 2018 to 2019, where I went from kind of that 4 hour range down to a 3:10. And that was because I properly trained. I was running 45 to 50 miles a week. I was starting to fuel, doing workouts, and then really ran more of what I was capable of. But from 2019 all the way to 2022 is me chasing sub 3 and then finally tackling it in 22. Yeah.
okay. Well, I think that speaks to the difference between preparation, and not preparing for
Hmm.
something, right? I mean, it was
Yeah.
in you, but if we don't prepare, right? I mean, we try to wing it, and
Hmm.
that's what happens. And luckily, you stuck with it long enough to see what could happen. But then, chasing sub 3, I mean, that took a number of chances, and that's a great milestone. A lot of us hobby runners, that's our goal. And what was that for you to get sub 3? That didn't happen overnight.
Yeah, it was pretty rough. I think the narrative of my first 5 years of marathon training and racing was just stubbornness. I think that was the biggest theme, was just a total lack of desire to figure out how to do it the right way.
Mhm.
And it was just me trying to will my way into performance, and it just kept not working. um, and I still didn't have a solid fueling plan. I still didn't understand carbohydrate intake,
Right.
and how to actually fuel. And there was less research even back then, even around COVID in 2020.
Mm.
There's been so much the past 5 years, the past 3 years even. And I was critically under fueling. I was not doing enough long run workouts. I was, getting into long runs, but I don't think I ever really tested any kind of marathon pace within long run workouts
Mhm.
and preparing myself for the stimulus of what a marathon was. So I would find myself in all of these races from 2019 to 2022 bonking struggling, puking, no real fueling strategy, and just really fighting walking in the last 10K. Like almost every race I would succumb to walking or having to slow so greatly that it was even slower than my easy run pace in that last 10K. And I felt so mentally defeated by the last third of a marathon. And I had somebody who followed me both, sort of started following my running, but had been following me on the photo video side because I started a
Uh-huh.
YouTube channel for
Uh-huh.
that. And he was a guy that eventually ran a 219 marathon, very acclimated to the sport. And he's like, we got to get you under 3. I can help you do it. So I trained with him that summer in 22 and really started doing every week, started doing a midweek workout and then putting in paces on long run workouts. And we were doing about 50 to 55, maybe even 60 miles a week. But I remember doing 800 repeats, mile
Uh-huh.
repeats. And finally, he was like, you have to find some gel that works. You like
Mhm.
this trying to eat a few honey stinger chews and a hope and a prayer is not going to work. You
Right.
got to figure something out. So like found Spring Energy, their awesome sauce, which had a bunch of controversy later on like how much carbs was in each of those.
Yeah.
But like at the time it was like, oh, I can actually consume this without throwing up. And so once I gained that confidence, had the right training, had a fueling plan, I put down enough carbs in that race. I negative split the race. And it was the first marathon where I negative split it pretty hard. Like I think I went through right on 130 and then ended up with a 257.
Oh, yeah.
So it felt so good to cross that finish line and be like,
Yeah.
that's how a marathon's supposed to be run.
Right. Yeah, what you described there, though, where fighting, not walking, getting sick. I mean, so many people
Oh,
listening have experienced that, and I agree with you on the last 3 years, the amount of data on carbo loading pre-race, and during the race. I mean, my first marathon over 20 years ago, I think I had one gel. In
yeah.
Boston this year, I think I had 7, and
Yeah.
I mean, you're right. I was doing one every 3 miles and like I
hmm
didn't bonk. I mean, and my
hmm
training's completely different than it was 20 years ago, and the shoes are different. So there's a lot of great resources out there that people can lean into, but you have to go find it. You have to, you have to go do it. And your progression is part of that story. And look, your story is the everyman, every woman's story, like not everyone has a 230 in them, but your progression is what I appreciate. And the fact that we haven't mentioned, you're a dad of 4, you're a husband, you're a business owner, you were a teacher at one point. I mean, you have that story, and you're not a pro runner, you are sponsored, but you're doing amazing things, and you're juggling a lot. So I guess that's what I wanna ask you about is, and you're very open about on your YouTube channel with your kids and stuff, which I love. But you're putting a lot of time into running, and you're juggling a lot right now, and, how do you go about managing all that?
Yeah, it's a question I'm asked frequently, and my answer is always like, it's not perfect. It
Right.
isn't. And a lot of people from the outside looking in can only see a certain percentage of my life, and that's a very small percentage of my
Mhm,
life that they're seeing actually.
mhm,
They might they might believe they see a lot of my life, but you're seeing like less than 1%.
mhm,
And that speaks to how people can try to have people perceive them online. Like there can be a lot of falsehood in what's presented. And so what I'm trying to do in that 1% that's viewed is really give an accurate description as to what is really happening. But there are really difficult parts that just can't be shared because they're too personal, like
mhm,
interrelational stuff that's with family and the struggles we have with parenthood and like not exposing my children to that stuff online and that
mhm,
that stuff is real and it is happening And so, to the best of my ability, trying to share that stuff with safeguards and making sure it's shared appropriately, you do expose yourself to a lot. So what's very interesting about the last 3 years of my work life is that I have really taken my foot off the gas of the creative part of my work life. I have not posted on my creative YouTube channel in a very long time.
Mhm.
And that wasn't by design or strategic. It was just kind of what naturally happened because of how much support I was getting in my running career between
Mhm.
sponsorships, sponsored videos, our coaching business, and it being robust enough to be my work.
Mhm.
And I'm feeling the effects of that now because now it's like, oh, I have to kind of exclusively keep the running thing going if I want
Mhm.
to hit my financial goals and, for the plans that we have. And so what was really interesting and what's interesting about where I'm at right now in life is I think without realizing it, I was really pursuing the sub 230. And I'm realizing now that that was a mental unlock for me. That now that that goal has been achieved,
Mhm.
I can already feel myself pulling back on the running.
Mhm.
And my creative mind is just exploding right now. So much so that we started this call. I'm like, you do not want to see the office I'm standing in right now. I'm in the middle of rehauling this and kitting out my home office, which I've wanted to do for 3 years, but
Mhm.
haven't.
Mhm.
But now I have this design and this plan, and I have 8 videos in the chamber for the creative YouTube channel, and I'm like ready to get back into that. And it doesn't mean I'm not going to be training hard. It doesn't mean I'm not going to try to PR again in Berlin this fall,
Mhm.
but it is going to look different. And so to answer your question, it's really dependent on where my passion lies. And that's a privilege to have, but it's a privilege that's been built because, the countless overnight editing sessions I had to build the creative channel and all of the risk that I took to, believe that that would work ended up working and it was monetized. And I did a wedding course that was extremely successful and funded the documentary we made over,
Mhm.
3 years. And so now I'm just at a place where I do have the ability to pick and choose what I want to do, but a lot of that is fueled by where my passion lies. And, recently I haven't been working out of my studio in the city much at all.
Mhm.
I've been working, 90% of my days at home and being available and, just 10 feet away from the chaos that's happening that you might hear in
Yeah.
this episode.
Life.
Um, yeah, but my commitment to them is completely changed because not that I wasn't in years prior, but as I was building my business and building that first creative YouTube channel, there were a lot of sacrifices I needed to make to be able to build that foundation. And my wife and I had lots of discussions about like, all right, I need you to trust me. Like there is enough proof of concept here that if I pour more gas on this fire, it is going to work. And someday, relatively soon, we are going to have much more flexibility than we would have otherwise. And she just kept trusting me. And then it ended up working. And we had that and we did that. And now, I can work 20 hours a week if I want. I can work
Mhm.
60 hours a week if I want.
Mhm.
I can coach my kids' baseball teams, which I'm
Yeah.
doing now. And the flexibility is all there. But I am saying no to a lot of work these
On the
days to make
creative
sure.
side, so that's like what
Mm,
kind of work is that? So people can understand when we talk about the
Yeah,
creative channel, it's not the running
yeah,
channel. I mean, you're a very talented photographer and videographer. So what is that
thanks, man.
work?
Yeah, so it's a multitude of stuff. It's really hard to like decipher exactly what it is. I haven't been shooting weddings for a while. I,
Mhm.
I just shot like my first proper Chicago wedding in a long time a couple weeks ago, and it was so fulfilling to be back and
Mhm.
just back in the saddle with
Mhm.
that and just recognizing how much I love that work. So it's taking on clients like that. It's taking on weddings. It's taking on commercial photo and video projects. What's interesting now is I've been able to keep commercial work going, but it's all kind of running related now. Like
Mm,
currently talking to a big running brand to do a pretty big commercial project that will probably be coming out in the next few months. I've done work with Iron Far and Hoka
mm.
and different docuseries type stuff. So that's really cool to have those opportunities, but there's a lot of sponsorship opportunities on the creative side that I've just, like I had a longstanding contract with a brand for 3 years that they actually moved over to just the running channel instead of my main channel. But it's
Interesting.
like those brands will not want to do work with you if there's no proof of you being consistent on that platform.
Yeah.
So it's been, again, I need to show consistency there again if I want that work to come back in, and fully cognizant of that needing to be the case. But now I feel the motivation to do so as opposed to an obligation.
Yeah. Okay. So you've got
Yeah.
these two vehicles, right? So these two
Mm-hmm.
YouTube channels, and when we say the creative, that's the video work, the photography, which is what you built up first, and
Right.
then Floberg runs your YouTube channel for running, which somehow I found. The funny thing is, this is such a runner thing, is this winter I find myself running in my garage on my treadmill watching YouTube of you running in your garage on your treadmill talking about running, and it's like just cracks me up. I'm just like, this is
So
hilarious,
funny.
but it's such a runner thing,
Uh-huh.
and I'm sure you can appreciate that. But
Uh-huh.
look, your creative eye, I mean, comes out in your videos, It's much different like if a guy like me tried creating videos, and I think that probably that's what those brands recognize, so they're not really taking a risk when they hire you to do something for them running wise because, I mean, these are like corporate level quality videos you put together, but you really started leaning into like how do you start the running side of it? Because when you started the YouTube channel, I mean, again, you weren't a 2:30 marathoner then,
Mhm.
but you just, it was just like a hobby. You started that piece of it.
Yeah, I'm funny enough is like people might look at my story and be like, whoa, he's pretty risky. Like he's jumping into a business and he's got 4 kids and holy, what? That's really stupid. You're like, well, actually, I've hedged a lot of my work life and been very strategic and careful about it. I started my career in teaching and had a salary teaching
Hmm.
job right out of college. I had a full ride to school under special education in the state of Illinois. So my only obligation for a full ride, which so I'm coming out of school with no debt.
Hmm.
I just had to teach 2 years in Illinois out of the first 5 that I was out. I ended up teaching the first 3 years that I was out. We had our first kid. We were not planning on it. But I coached basketball. I grinded. I built my business. I was shooting 25 weddings a year. Like that might have been the busiest I've ever been. Teaching full time, shooting every weekend, editing in the evenings. I was not fit. And that's where I became my most unfit, where I was pretty unhealthy. But I didn't need to teach that third year. I just did it because we wanted the health insurance and to build a nest egg. And then I felt comfortable enough to jump to full time with weddings, jump to full time shooting 30 a year, plenty of income, 3 times the income I was making in teaching. And then I started that YouTube channel because some friends were like, you should go after this. And so it's always just like the next creative thing that I take a risk on is always built on a foundation of like, no, this thing is stable. I can go
Yeah.
back to this if this doesn't work. And each thing has worked in the next progression of my work life because I feel like I had enough self-awareness to know, hey, this is your skill set. You were in musical theater. You can be in front of a camera. You know how to edit stuff. You
Hmm.
were a teacher, so you can teach something that you know more about than a lot of the people watching. And so just constantly having that confidence of like, it might not be perfect, but it's enough to be entertaining or beneficial to somebody who's watching. So once the creative channel was built, I was running all of my wedding photography, filmmaking stuff. I had that channel going and a bunch of sponsorships coming up. We bought our first piece of real estate. We're living in it. I was like, COVID hit and all of the weddings stopped and everything just kept like the series of emails I was getting through COVID was like, oh, we're postponing to 3 weeks from now. Oh, we're
Mm-hmm.
postponing 3 months from now. Oh, we're
Mm-hmm.
postponing to a year from now. And it was just postponement, 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 postponement. And I have all the retainers of these things. I have no work to do. I'm not shooting. I'm not editing. Nothing. So all I was watching at the time was running YouTube. I was watching Kofuzi, Seth James Moore,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm looking at them. I'm like, I love this, and I still love them, and I love kind of like the campiness of what it was back then, especially Seth, and just kind of like it's dorky dad runner vibes. And
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, well, I have a cinematic angle I could take on something like this. So I started filming the way they did in 2020, and I made my first videos on the Floberg Runs channel, but it just gained no traction. And then everything started picking up weddings again. So I was like, all right, I can't do that now.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe some other time. So as I started to progress, and when 22 came around and I was running Chicago, I'm like, I really think I'm going to break 3 in this race. I had a full-time employee at that time. I'm like, all right, we need to film this thing. Because if that happens, this video will definitely get a lot of views. I know race videos get a lot of views. I knew the platform. I knew YouTube. I'm like, it just makes sense. Let's just do it. So we did. Video got a lot of views. And then right after that, I'm like, okay, proof of concept's there. Got to 1,000 subscribers. What if we do a series where I try to break 250 now? And then that just exploded when we
Yeah.
tried to do that. So yeah, I took a risk on that and just started doubling down on it. And my employee at that time was almost exclusively shooting and editing those videos, and then it worked.
How long was it before you started getting sponsorships and things like that, right? Where there you were able to monetize the running side of things?
It was a while from that race film of Chicago in 22. I didn't get sponsored by BPN until over a year later. So it was December of 23 when I
Mhm.
signed with BPN.
Mhm.
And yeah, I was not quick to take stuff on. When you do YouTube and your YouTube channel explodes, you get a lot of emails from just random brands, and you could do a sponsorship here and there for a couple $100, this, that, the other. And it's, again, I was built on this foundation of other brand sponsorships on the creative side, still plenty of creative work over there to just be like, I'm going to wait till the right things come through on the running side. And then once they started coming through, I was like, this is unbelievable. Like, I can't believe I'm able to monetize this in
Mhm.
this way. And when it's right, it's right. When a brand fits well and you're able to integrate it well and it doesn't feel contractual and both parties are super happy about it, it's really special and really cool. And I think that's what's really sweet about YouTube and online marketing and business building now is that,
Mhm.
it can make some traditionalists or in the space kind of shake their fist at the sky like these pros should be XYZ, blah, blah, blah. But the market dictates what is most popular and what is most relatable. And so, I realized taking advantage of that in a business sense of, well, more people can relate to me than they can to the elite
Yes,
who's making
totally.
videos about this stuff.
Yeah.
And then if I can do it with the quality that I'm capable of between, friends helping me, employees helping me, and me kind of directing these docuseries, then I think they could be substantive and substantial. So yeah, we just kind of ran with that and
Yeah.
and saw it work.
Is it 100%? And that's exactly what I was talking about, that I think you resonate, I mean, with me, but with a lot of people, because your times are amazing, but you're an everyday guy. By the way, I now wear Bandit running tights. I didn't know of them until you, and then I was like, I got to try those. So I got some, and they were great. I'll use those now for races.
They're great.
So it works. You can tell
Yeah.
them. Yeah, there's one there. But I think on your YouTube channel, what I think is interesting is the quality is phenomenal, but also the content is very good. And in watching your videos, and you talk about it like YouTube, like perhaps algorithms and what works and what not. Like you've studied that, so you're applying that. But also you're pretty vulnerable on there. Like you put a hard workout where you don't hit it or you're disappointed. And do you ever like find yourself putting something out there that it's hard for you, or you're second guessing yourself, like, should I put this out there or not?
Yeah, that part's really complicated, especially once you start coaching people. You know, if you show your flaws
Mm,
and then you're like, "Oh wait, people expect me to coach them after I made this mistake." I have to constantly remind myself that that's actually more appealing to most people than trying to hide making a mistake. Because I think sharing the human part of you is what makes the experience of watching this stuff make them feel so connected.
mhm,
Because n- like virtually nobody is so dialed that they're not making any mistakes.
right.
And then you add in the fact that I do have a family. I do have 4 kids. There's some times where I don't carb load. I don't get the required sleep I need. And so I was an idiot. And the night before I ate 3 chicken thighs for dinner. And then I went and tried to run 13 by 800 and I got demolished. Like
Yeah.
I'm getting there and, I'm warming up with Clark and he's like, "What'd you eat last night?" I'm like, dude, I ate chicken thighs last night. And he's just kind of like, okay, let's see how this goes. And it did not go well, and then just being vulnerable with me, like, I actually know what I did wrong. And so I need to, I need to be more dialed in if I want to
Yeah.
have a better outcome next time.
Yeah.
And that is a learning lesson. Um, so yeah, I think it's always better to just be real about the mistakes that are made and just showing the human side of me, because I think if you're constantly just like, no, everything was flawless, everything was perfect, everyone's like, there's
Yeah.
no way I can get to that point.
Yeah. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
great. You mentioned Clark there.
Mhm.
Is Clark the muscular guy? Is he
That's
the
Trevor.
Oh, Trevor.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Clark, there's a few of those guys that I see on
Yeah.
there. And where I'm going with that, and Trevor, by the way, is a beast, man. That guy,
Yeah.
holy cow. And I watched those training runs and then what he did in Boston. I was like, this
Yep.
guy's getting after it.
Yep.
Um, but I want to ask you about because it's very obvious that one of the great things about running or whatever you're into is community, and you see that with the guys you train with and you run with, and the fulfillment that comes with that, I believe. So what has that experience been for you to train and share kind of this experience with these other runners?
There's definitely a correlated line that goes with my progression and how much I've chosen to train and be in community with people. They
Mm.
run in parallel with one another. And that's been really cool to zoom out and see, because that first sub 3 that I got was with that friend who coached me. And ever since then, I've opened up myself to training with other people and extending myself and pushing myself. So the first real manifestation of that was starting to train with Clark, who used to live in Chicago. He's out in New York now, but
Mhm. Right.
he's one of the coaches in our program. Both him and Cyrus coach with me. But yeah, Clark and I would start to do track workouts together. Most notably, we started doing long run workouts together. So we were both coached by Jeff Cunningham, and he would
Mhm.
give us virtually because we were training for the same races, he would virtually give us the same long run workouts, but Clark's would always just be like a little bit faster on the reps. And so it was either me trying to just keep him within eyesight or try to hang with him for the first half of these workouts. And I noticed myself closing that gap
Mm.
and us really kind of being close in performance. So in 24 in Boston, we trained a lot of that block together, and then we ended racing the race just a minute apart. Um, and that's continued to be the case. Unfortunately, Clark, good for him. Like he grew his career and he's out in New York City now. Sad
Mhm.
for me and us being able to run together. But Trevor was that person this past block where it's almost identical story. Like we did those long run workouts together. He was a bit fitter than I was. I was hanging on for dear life. And then again at Boston, we finished a minute apart from each other, him a minute faster than I. And yeah, I mean, paramount. I'm constantly learning this lesson of growth happens for me in a group of people and pushing myself with others. It's crazy that even just this week I was down in St. Louis with my family on a family trip. But it's so cool that I'm so connected to the running world that my friend Danny Perkins from Life in Stride podcast, he's down in St. Louis. We all got together and did a track workout together. And I had realized I'd done plenty of track workouts with one friend or two friends, but never with a group of people.
Mm-hmm.
And we were on the track like 8 guys deep. And it was wild to run a track workout like that because it was a completely different stimulus for me. I was not given any prescribed paces, but I was one of the faster ones in the group. So I would hang with the pack and then accelerate through each rep. And I'm like, I'm running the same times I normally do, but these feel so much more effortless doing it this way. Because normally when I run them solo, I'm burning way too hot at first and fading. And I'm like, man, and I need that kind of discipline to be like, no, I'm just going to hang in the pack for a while or else I will go out too hot. And don't have the discipline to do so. So there's all these very specific examples of it working, community working, but more than just the progression and getting fitter and pushing each other to better times, which is a very beautiful and awesome thing. I care far more about the relational side of these relationships forming. Like I've made lifelong friends in these friends that I'm running with now.
Mm-hmm.
It's often that guys don't want to face each other face to face to talk about life, but doing it shoulder to shoulder while doing something else opens guys up usually to having those discussions. So we find ourselves on, we have a group that meets every Tuesday now and it's growing every week. And we call ourselves the Mall Cops, and we've gotten so close to each other, and I find myself having conversations with these guys where we're opening up about life and participating in life together. It's really deep and meaningful, and we're all across the spectrum on ability and times and all sorts of stuff, but we find this common ground every Tuesday morning and meet, and it's insanely special.
Yeah, that's a fulfillment for sure. And I think on the mental side of things, which you touched on a little bit earlier, but you were talking about belief, right? And I think that's a maturity that comes with any task that we deal with so much negative self-talk, whether it's running, definitely, or in life. We're constantly, and so how did you flex that muscle mentally to really understand? I'm going to believe that I can do this, because proving to yourself, proof of concept, you've hit these times, and staying mentally strong when that voice in your head is telling you to give in.
There were a couple of very obvious things that hit me in this Boston block that made me realize that the mental game was different. The first was we ran our last big long run workout at a place called Waterfall Glen up here in Chicago. It's a big 9-mile loop with a ton of hills. And most notably, we run it clockwise. And when you hit the backside of that loop at around mile 7.5, there's a huge 150-foot climb. And it's bigger than Heartbreak. And it's just super intimidating and very, very hard. And Trevor, we were going off of his work schedule. So we started it like right at sunset into the dark. And it was just, I made a video on it. It was so gnarly and just unbelievably hard. It was one of those where, again, running it with somebody else in difficult circumstances, I think most people do. I have a much harder time running fast in the dark. But being on a crushed gravel trail, hitting those hills, I was still able to get through the paced mileage of that workout. We got to the top of the hill, and Trevor, being the person he is, he doubled back and came with me, and I latched back on, and he's like, no, we're finishing this loop together. Like, there's no reason for me to be 200 meters ahead of you. Let's grind this out together. And I think the give and take on that is so great, because we got out to the road off of the trail, finishing the set. And then he's like, all right, this is where I did my 10 miles prescribed workout. And he's like, all right. And then he took off and did 2 more after that. And it was just this great push and pull of like, let's work together, but still push ourselves individually. We came off of that and I was very destroyed after that workout, just full, like, big visit to the porta potty
Uh-huh.
after, felt like freezing, shivering, and he's sitting there doing like 70 push-ups in the parking lot.
I
I'm
remember that
like,
video. I
dude,
remember that video. You were wiped out, but
yeah.
it was a good one.
And I came off of that, that's where then comparison comes in. You look at your friend, you're like, oh man, you're gonna do it, but I don't know if I'm going to. Like, it's clear that you're in the shape and you'll be able to, but it's more of like I'm right on the cusp and the line. And I started that negative self-talk. I started doing this sandbagging, like, we'll see, we'll see, we'll see. And he just kept being like, you are fit enough. You did do that thing. He kept being like, those variables do matter. We were on crushed gravel. There's less energy return. We were running in the dark. You ran faster than marathon pace. You were on hills. Like, he just kept speaking truth and just being
Mhm.
like, you're wrong.
Yeah.
You are fit enough. And he
Yes.
kept, again, that community piece was like, he kept saying that to me. I'm like, you know what? I need to actually believe that I am fit enough, or else I'm not going to do it. That you're right. Like,
Yeah.
I actually have to believe it. So that's when I turned. And the last video I said that, I'm like, I need to actually believe I can do this, because if I keep sandbagging myself and keep being like, oh, we'll see, which is what I've done the past few races, peak
Mhm.
races, you don't do it. And
Yeah.
so it was that shift of like, no, I have the ability to do this. I will. And so then we ran most of Boston together. And even that morning, it's just emphasizing, this is just another long run workout. This is just us back at Waterfall Glen. This is just us hammering another one together. Let's go. Let's do this. And easing the pressure off was incredible. So that was the biggest piece functionally. And then within that, my grandfather passed in the weeks leading up to Boston. And
Mm.
so, like, he was 93, and I touched on it in the videos, in the race video. And it was just this, it sucks in every circumstance to lose a loved one, no matter what the circumstance is, no matter how long they've lived and how, how much writing you saw on the wall of it coming. It brings stuff to the surface relationally and in your family that you didn't necessarily have to face prior.
Mhm.
And so it really just made me sit back and recognize, like, how beautiful my life is and how much of a privilege it is to be doing what I'm doing.
Mm.
And having any kind of sense of nothing short of overwhelming gratitude is, I just need to be diving into that more and recognizing that this is a privilege to be able to go to this race, to experience this weekend, to race it as hard as I am, to be as fit as I am, to have the family I do, just
Yeah.
all of these things. And so that feeling of gratitude just throughout the entire race, a deep part of Trevor and I's relationship is our faith. And so, like, praying on
Mm.
the starting line together and having that kind of understanding of the bigger picture going into that was so paramount for me. So those are the two biggest things. And it was really cool to share it with Trev. And I told him post race, like, this has bonded us for life. There's
Yeah.
no way we are not
Yeah.
going to be friends for the rest of our lives now.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I've watched all of that with you, and that I love you sharing that. I mean, gratitude is such a powerful thing, man.
Hmm.
I mean, faith too, which you touched on. I mean, the
Hmm.
combination of those two, like, deals with the worry and the pressure, right? It's about
Hmm.
perspective, and you do such a great job of sharing that. I'm glad you did. You talked about Berlin coming up in September, which
Hmm.
actually I'll be at Berlin as well. So I just wonder, like, and you probably had this question, and I don't know if it's a fair question, but like, what's next? Like, how do you, I mean, are you going to keep getting faster? I mean, or does that matter, or does it shift to something else, right? Is that a
Yeah,
fair question? I don't know.
it is. Yeah. I think Boston and breaking 230 was definitely, it was the conclusion of some kind of chapter,
Yeah.
like, for sure.
Yeah.
There's no way around that. So I'm really asking myself the same question. And I think it's kind of the question I've always been asking myself. Can I get faster?
Mm.
We'll see,
Mhm.
Um, I think what's exciting is there's always something you can look at and be like, well, all right, Berlin's flatter.
Yeah, right, totally.
Um, there's great competition there. I can do this, that, the other in this training block. So I'm going to be throwing a lot at it.
Yeah.
I'm going to be running 100-mile weeks this summer. I'll continue to kind of do that same rhythm of long run workouts, whether Jeff likes it or not. I'm probably going to push it a little. I'm definitely going to push it harder than he wants me to, but knowing my own limits and taking an off week if I need to. I think the next few years will just really kind of dictate where I want to take things with my running. I could see a world where I'm just constantly just aiming to run a sub 2:30 marathon for
Yeah.
as long as I can
Yeah.
every peak race. I could see a world where I'm trying to get down to low 220s.
Hmm.
I have no idea if I would ever be any faster than that. A lot of me believes that 225 is probably my ceiling, given my age, ability, but I never want to question what that is. Like, there could be a massive breakthrough.
Sure.
Um, I'm doing what's fun. I'm doing what I think is going to help. My college roommate does sprint work, and he's putting me through some sprint drills, and that's really exciting.
Yeah.
To get completely different stimulus on the track and different exciting workouts where I'm, placing my foot in a completely different spot and driving through my running phase completely differently.
Uh-huh.
I think there will be a point where my running will turn into for the love of the game, and we're not chasing times anymore,
Yeah.
unless I get really into Masters division or whatever. But I don't try to forecast really anything outside of the next 5 years. So really for me, the next 5 years is how fast can we get for an all-time PR? And then from there, we'll figure it out.
Yeah. That chapter, that 230 chapter, it feels like that's given you freedom,
Yeah.
like, I mean, to push it without, you don't have to worry about consequences, right? I mean,
Right.
that probably just opens it up for you.
Hmm.
Okay, one more thing on the coaching side of things, because you mentioned
Yeah.
that. Seems like a natural progression. People see you, then they start reaching out to you about coaching. So what does that look like for you? And I know you mentioned you have a couple of partners on that.
Yeah. I don't plug it very often just because I don't really want to. We are already at basically capacity.
Yeah.
We kind of float around 75 athletes. And so Clark, Cyrus, and I split that up, and it's primarily marathon training. We do half training as well. And then we'll do periodized faster stuff, in down seasons. Like, a lot of people are racing 5, 10K. Again, pulling from a lot of my past skills with teaching and media production and having a Patreon on the creative side as well. We did it all through Patreon, and had that be our communication base and where we connect with athletes. But yeah, through a lot of study, through Hanson's and
Hmm.
Fitzinger, and being coached by multiple people and having all of our own experiences in running, just realizing, like, you can talk yourself out of coaching, based off experience. I don't have a formal certification. I'm currently working through a USCA one, but it's like, some people would be like, that's unethical. That's blah, blah, blah. You should be certified. It's like, well, I'd think that I have enough experience to help someone if they
Sure.
feel, it is an open market to say, I do trust that you're going to help me get better times. And at the end of the day, it's proof of concept. Like,
Right.
are they getting faster? Are they meeting their goals? And we have lots of very, very cool stories of our athletes doing so. And, we've had some that have been with us from the start of it, and we're this summer approaching 2 years since we started. And we have some athletes that have PR'd every single spring and fall. And so seeing that progression similarly to my story is really, really cool
Yeah.
to see other people doing the same. Um, but yeah, it's really fun to concoct your own philosophy of what coaching is relative to the individual and prescribing what you feel like is best for them. And still, it always evolving based off of our own experiences and their own experiences. We're in constant communication with them. It's taken us too long, but we did just open up a Discord for everybody, and we're all making summer and fall plans to all get together.
Mm.
And then that relational component comes back in, where we're really kind of honing in on Indy being our, like, party as a group this
Uh-huh.
year.
Uh-huh.
So if we could get like 30 to 40 people out to that, it would be insane, because we have tons of other friends racing that, and we have a bunch of athletes in the race. So yeah, I could talk about it and wax on
Yeah.
forever because it's just so fun and fulfilling relationally. But seeing people meet their goals and get really fired up about them is just like nothing else.
Yeah, it's cool. I've had that one-on-one coaching is awesome. And the other thing, and you might evolve into this, is I did something for this Boston with Peter Bromka, who you know.
Yeah.
He's great, and I found him through Mario Fraioli. But anyhow, he did a group thing, right, where it was a 7-part series. It was called Pillars of Marathoning, and it wasn't
Mm-hmm.
one-on-one coaching, but
Right.
we would do an hour Zoom together. It was probably 30 people, and we hit on different things, including nutrition and training, and a number of things were very Boston specific,
Yeah.
covering the course and whatnot. I thought it really helped me in my race, and then you connect with other people,
Mm-hmm.
and I think for Peter, you can. You're doing 30 people at one time. It's not the
Mm-hmm.
one-on-one thing. So there's a lot of different levers probably to pull on the coaching side if you wanted to lean into that with all
For
your
sure.
experience. So,
Yeah.
yeah. Okay, so it's Floberg runs on YouTube, and then obviously your creative channels just under your name, Eric Floberg, and then Instagram's
Mhm.
probably another big spot to find you. Is that right?
Yep, yep. Just basically the same. I try to just keep it to YouTube and Instagram and no other socials.
Yeah.
So, yeah, yeah.
Awesome. Well, I told you this through email that when I finished Boston and I got my phone, the first result I looked up was your name, dude, because I knew
Oh,
I knew what you were going for, and I saw that, and I was so happy for you, and I couldn't
oh,
wait for that
appreciate
video to
that.
come out, dude. So,
Yeah.
like it's very inspiring as a hobby runner to see what you've done and just share your story. So I encourage people, whether you're a runner or not, I just think people appreciate the conquest, right, and
Mhm.
achieving great things. So keep doing what you're doing. It makes a difference.
Thanks, Greg. Really appreciate it.
All right. Thanks for being here.